Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Ramo Rajamanis Sada Vijayate Ramam Ramesham Bhaje Ramena Bihata Nishacharachamu Ramaya Tasmai Namaha. Raman Nasti Parayanam Parataram Ramasya Dasosmyaham Rame Chittalaya Sada Bhavatu Me Bho Rama Mamuddhara Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidwaram Sadgurum Brahma Vidwaram. Shri Ram Jaya Ram Jaya Jaya Ram. 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 बोलिए सियावर रामचंद्र की जय. श्री सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय. Hari Om everyone. We'll chant the first two shlokas of Sadhana Panchakam. Vedo nityamadhiyatam taduditam karma svanushthiyatam tene shasya vidhiyatam apachitihi kamye matistyajyatam papaughah paridhuyatam bhavasukhe dosho nusandhiyatam atmecha vyavasiyatam nijagruhat turnam vinirgamyatam sangas satsu vidhiyatam bhagavato bhaktir drudhadhiyatam शान्त्यादिः परिचीयतां दृढतरं कर्माशु सन्त्यज्यतां सद्विद्वानुपसृप्यतां प्रतिदिनं तत्पादुका सेव्यतां ब्रह्मैकाक्षरमर्थ्यथां Shruti Shiro Vakyam Samakarnyatam. Hari Om, everyone. In the last session, we had seen two main sadhanas, which was letting go of karmas, letting go of those karmas which are obstructing our goal, and letting go of those karmas gives us the time to focus where we want ourselves to focus on. And second was tuning ourselves with the teacher. Sadvidwan upasrupyatam pratidinam tat paduka sevyatam. The main point of this sadhana is that our study of Vedanta is to discover nature of happiness. There can be a study of Vedanta which is mainly to, let us say, study the grammar or study some kind of logic in Vedanta. So it is said that purpose is different than the purpose of studying Vedanta in a Gurukula. Purpose of studying in a Gurukula is to make Vedanta our darshan. Darshan means my vision of life. So whatever is said here should be something that I can own up for myself and see the result of that knowledge. That is why this tuning part becomes very important, and this is what distinguishes Gurukula study from university study. In university, whenever we go to study Vedanta or any other topic, they will not ask for sadhana chatushtaya. They will not ask for inner qualification. They won't say you should have viveka, vairagya, all the shanti, etc. Whatever we saw. None of that will be asked. At the most, you can define it, but it is not expected that you should have those qualities. But when we study Vedanta for our own inner growth, that is when it is not sufficient only to know these qualities, but put forth effort to own up these qualities. That is when each and every sentence which is said in Vedanta starts opening up, and we can see, the knowledge which is pointed out. That happiness which Vedanta is promising, it is not some hypothetical idea. Quietening the mind itself gives, lot of joy. But what to talk about if somebody is able to discover unconditioned happiness? So that is this journey. And now we are approaching closer and closer towards the main sadhana of sadhana panchakam, or in any Vedanta journey. If you take journey of a sadhaka, there is one sadhana which is the most important one, and that is Shravanam. We will come to that. But one thing to note is Shravanam is coming after almost 16 steps of sadhana. Meaning again and again, we have to look at all these sadhanas and think for ourselves, where do I need to work more? Is it in dosha darshanam that I have to put forth more effort and see the other side of things? Or is it in strengthening my desire to know the nature of, to know my true nature? Is that something which I should work on? Or is it karma yoga? Is that a place where I should put more effort? So this sadhanas are like a mirror. Every time we look, we get to see a reflection of ourselves. And if we see there is something that I can do to make myself, appear in a good way, then that adjustment has to be made. So these sadhanas are also like that mirror where we can look and make the appropriate adjustments. Now comes a very beautiful sadhana which says Brahmaikakshara Marthyatam, the last line of this sadhana, of second verse. Brahmaikakshara Marthyatam means what? Brahma Eka Aksharam Arthyatam. So this student has gone to the teacher with lot of questions, right? What is the nature of this world? Why is there suffering in this world? Is there something which is beyond suffering? At that point, the teacher says, yes, there is something which is beyond all these limitations that you are seeing, and that is called Brahma. And the same Brahma is called Om. Instead of giving a long answer to the student's question, the teacher directly gives a shorter answer. He says there is something called as Om, which is beyond all limitations. But we cannot stop merely at the, hearing the word Om. It is said, understand the meaning of Om. Brahma eka aksharam arthyatam. What is that eka akshara? That is Omkara. So that Omkara is something which is pervading this entire creation, which is in the form of consciousness. That consciousness pervades each and every name and form that we can see in this creation. That consciousness plus name and form is called Omkara. Now this sadhana, why is it given to the student? Because the student right now has too much attention on himself. So before Vedanta knowledge is given, the teacher wants to bring about an expansion in the thinking of the student. So he says, you are very familiar with name and form. Now you see name and form plus consciousness there. And that together is called as Omkara. Now we can use the word Omkara, or you can use any Bhagwan's name also. This entire creation with consciousness is called Bhagwan. Bhagwan Rama, Bhagwan Krishna. Now this is, a very important sadhana before going into Vedanta sadhana. There is a story in Chandogya Upanishad where Naradji approaches Sanakadi Rishis. Brahmaji's 4 mind-born sons, Sanat Kumaras they are called. Naradji goes and approaches them. And Naradji, is very dejected when he comes to meet them. And they wonder, why is Naradji dejected? So they ask him, Naradji, what is the matter with you? Naradji gives them a long list of, qualifications that he has. And he lists around 22 types of vidyas that he has learnt. Everything about the world. Geography, geology, mathematics, grammar, everything, including knowledge of snakes, how to cure, snake bites. All of that he tells Sanat Kumaras. But then he says one sentence, in spite of knowing all these vidyas, my sorrow has not gone. Soham bhagavo shochami. Shokasya param tarayatu. May you take me across this incompleteness which I am feeling. What is shokam there? Shokam is sense of hollowness within and mental agitation. Manasa santapa. Why I brought this example is this point now. Even though Naradji is asking, give me that absolute knowledge which will take me across this ocean of samsara, Sanat Kumaras give him Nama Brahma Upasana. And the first step which is taught to Naradji is, you are very familiar with names and forms, right? You are familiar with different types of knowledge, different types of objects. But what was happening is, attention was only on name and form. I don't see any object as name and form plus consciousness. Right? Let us say if I see a book, I see it only as a book. I don't see it as consciousness pervading that book. So this is that teaching which Sanat Kumaras give to Naradji. And the purpose is same, that when we do this kind of upasana, mind expands. the same consciousness, same Bhagwan whom I am worshipping in one form, now I understand that Bhagwan is all pervading. And when that happens, the immediate result that should happen is we should become more accommodative of people around us. We should be more maturing in our understanding of Bhagavan. That is one sadhana which a sadhaka has to do before getting into Vedanta sadhana. This is called as Tatpada Vichara. Tatpada means what? This entire creation has come from consciousness. Ishavasim idagam sarvam. We cannot skip that step. Why we cannot skip? Later we can discuss it. But sometimes we have this question, like, can we directly go into Vedanta inquiry, inquiring about who am I? So it is true, we can do that, but it won't complete the full process of Vedantic study. Result of knowledge won't be fully seen. So this step is the precursor, to Vedanta Shravanam, where we see this entire creation pervaded by consciousness. So when we chant Om in the beginning, right, of the class also, or whenever we chant Om, when we have understood the nature or meaning of Om, we should try to bring that understanding. Whenever we say Bhagwan Rama, one meaning of Bhagwan Rama is one who is in one form. In addition to that, what it means is the one who is pervading this entire creation, that consciousness with that Samashti Upadhi is called as Bhagwan Rama. Okay, this thinking we should do. Now, what is the meaning of Om? So simple, meaning we will see. We'll not go into too much technical details of Omkara. As I had mentioned in the last class, Mandukya Upanishad, entire elaboration is given of this one word Om. Very beautiful elaboration. So when we say consciousness pervades this entire creation, right? Now this idea is mapped onto the word Om. How is it mapped? So Omkara has 3 syllables: Akara, Ukara and so which we call as Makara. Akara, Ukara and Makara. So these 3 stages are mapped to 3 states of experiences. Means we have the waking state, we have the dream state, and then we have the deep sleep state. In our own daily routine, we see when we don't know anything about the world, that is deep sleep. When we are seeing movie with special effects, that is dream. And whenever we use sense organs to see anything, that is called as waking state. In and through all these 3 states, there is consciousness which is pervading all the 3. This is not another 4th state. It is the one in which these 3 states are appearing. Like right now in waking state, only because consciousness is expressing through the mind, through the sense organs, we are able to speak, we are able to listen. Same in dream also. Because consciousness is there, we are able to experience dream and deep sleep also. So basically that one consciousness is pervading this entire 3 state. Now you come to the analogy here. What was the 3? Akara, Ukara and Makara. Just as consciousness is pervading the 3 states, silence is pervading the 3 sounds. Even when you say silence is already there. When you say u, silence is already there. When you say ma, silence is already there. When you don't say anything, what remains is only silence. But be careful here, even when sound is there, silence is untouched. Okay, so that is the meaning of Omkara. So when we chant Om, when we don't have to say separately, u separately, ma separately. When we say Om, everything is included, but what thought should come in our mind is It is that consciousness which is pervading entire creation. That is what is represented by a, u, and ma. Waking creation, the world that we see around us, all is included in a. The subtle creation, the dream and any thought, not necessarily dream. If you close your eyes and think of anything, let's say, think of an apple. That apple is not gross, right? It is subtle. So that also is appearing in that same consciousness. And deep sleep also, makara, that also is pervaded by the same consciousness, just like the silence pervades all the sounds. Okay, so this is a sadhana which we can do, especially if you are doing japa. Sometimes japa gets mechanical, right? That if you are doing Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, you might start with Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram very alert, the bead is in your hand and everything. But by the time you reach 5 or 6, mind has gone somewhere else, but you're still chanting the same mantra. So if you can bring mind back to this understanding that when you say Rama, when you say Krishna, it is that consciousness which is pervading entire creation. On that I am meditating. Different from myself. Right now, sadhaka has not understood that the same consciousness is me, myself. That is, the next step. The first step is to make sure that we see this creation pervaded by consciousness. That is this Omkara. So you can do one bead and pause there for a small, not too long, maybe half a second. Think about this, then go to the next bead. Think about it, then go to the next bead. The most important point of japa is sajatiya vritti pravaha. Sajatiya means the same kind of thought should flow. If we are able to maintain that, not too much emphasis is given on the meaning. So japa, even if you don't have too much understanding of that mantra, it's okay. As long as we are able to maintain the same thought, then that is very helpful. So either only Omkara, that japa also we can do, like just keep chanting Om. With what understanding? Just like silence pervades the 3 matras, in the same way, consciousness pervades the 3 states of experiences. That we can keep doing. In technical word, it is called as amatra. The silence is called as amatra, which is mapped to pure consciousness, the turiya. So we don't have to get into the names, but I hope the sadhana aspect of this one is clear. Brahmaekakshara martyatam. And as I had mentioned in the last class, we had seen that what happens with this understanding is no place we will feel insecure in this entire creation. Wherever we might end up, we should understand we are always in Bhagwan's safe world. We are in Bhagwan's care no matter where we end up. There were so many freedom fighters who wrote Bhagavad Gita commentaries when they were in prison. And I used to wonder, what kind of a mindset they might have had to come up with such kind of thoughts even when they are in a place which otherwise is considered not a very good place to be. This is just an example, but for us sometimes whenever we go to some places or some situation, some new country, we feel that lack of support to hold on to. But this is our Shruti Siddhanta, that the same consciousness pervades this entire creation. Means we'll be at ease no matter where we go. Now, after so much of sadhana, which was done before, the sadhaka is finally ready to do that main sadhana for which this all previous sadhanas are prescribed. What is that? That is Vedanta Shravanam. Our Gurudev used to say that this Shravanam that the teacher is trying to do to us, right? The painting that the teacher is trying to paint in our mind of this absolute truth, he says it's like drawing a rangoli on water. If you draw it on a canvas, at least that canvas doesn't move, right? After some time you go, if you have left the painting half done, you can start from where you left. But he used to say that Vedanta teaching is like drawing a water rangoli. And he used to narrate one incident when there was one devotee from Pune who used to draw these beautiful water rangolis. And when he was coming to just see one of those water rangoli, it was a small room. Many of them had entered along with Gurudev, and they were looking at that. And one devotee felt that Gurudev must be feeling very hot. Let me turn on the fan. Moment he turns on the fan, this rangoli, as everybody is seeing, sinks down into that water. The point is, our mind is also like that. Until this point, whatever sadhanas are given out, they are to prepare our mind so that we can single-pointedly listen to what Vedanta is trying to tell us. They might have other benefits also, like some places we saw, we might be more efficient in the world outside. They are side benefits. Main benefit is we will be able to single-pointedly listen to Vedanta and grasp the essence of Vedanta. So that is this sadhana which says, Shruti Shiro Vakyam Samakarnyatam. Shruti Shiraha, Shruti means Vedanta. In Vedanta, Shruti Shiraha means the essence of Vedanta. That Vakya is called as Mahavakya. That Mahavakya you listen to carefully. What is Mahavakya? Simple understanding we will see. The style of teaching of Vedanta is this. First of all, you see the previous sadhana, Brahma Ekaksharam Arthyatam, right? So it was said, Brahman is that which pervades this entire creation. This entire creation has come from Brahma. This is one step. This is called Tatpada. Okay, thinking about creation. Now that Tatpada, Mahavakya will say, that Brahma I am. The teacher will advise or teach, that Brahma you are. Tat Tvam Asi. First what did the teacher do? Explain what is Tat. Tat means Brahma, that consciousness from which this entire creation has come about. And he says, that Brahman you are. Now the student is thoroughly confused, First of all, he has to understand that this is the essence of Vedanta. This is the essence of entire Vedas. This meaning what? This sentence. Tat Tvam Asi, you are that infinite Brahman. This is the essence of entire Vedanta. They might have spoken so many things. Out of that, if there is one thing which is the essence, that is this sentence. To come to this understanding, or when we come to this understanding, it is said that is when our Shravanam begins. Before that, everything was preparation for Shravanam. After having understood that essence of Vedanta is to tell me I am Brahman, then again when we start doing Shravanam, everything will fall in place. Again, when we start reading different texts, you will realize, oh, what a beautiful way of pointing out the same truth in so many different ways. Right? So that is Shravanam. Shruti Shiro Vakyam Samakarnyatam. Okay. So first is Tatpada. So Tattvamasi, these are the Mahavakyas. They are called as Akhandartha Bodhaka Vakya. That sentence which reveals our infinitude. If it is revealing only greatness of Brahma, then it is not Mahavakya. If that statement, there are statements in Vedanta which say Brahman or Ishvara is very supreme, most, supreme most thing. Let us see it in that way. Bhagwan is the most beautiful. Now that sentence is for sadhana. That sentence is for this sadhaka to become mature and surrender to Bhagwan. And when identity is pointed out, that Bhagwan is non-different than me, we should understand how is Bhagwan non-different from me. That sentence becomes as Mahavakya. I am that all-pervading consciousness. Right? Clarity about this sentence should come. Now it doesn't happen right away. First time when we hear, lot of doubts will come. What is this Brahman? How can I be Brahman? There is so many differences that I see between myself and Bhagwan. There are so many differences that we see. So that will be next sadhana, but I hope the part of Shravanam is clear. At least we are able to listen clearly and ascertain that this is the essence of Vedanta. That much if we can do, then we have understood the essence or tatparya of Vedanta. Means Shravanam has started working. And when we were studying in Sandipani, Swamiji used to say that right when Mahavakya is said, right, there is a possibility of some distraction to come. Means next to our ashram, we had a hotel. So whenever Swamiji evening class, right, whenever 4:30 used to start Sahana Bhavatu, that time they will start playing drums. Means marriage used to go on every day, something or the other. And he used to say, if this goes on like this, when I say Tattvamasi, that time they'll play something. Means, Shravanam has not happened. Something else only this sadhaka will understand. But we should understand, it need not always be obstruction from outside. Our own mind is capable of putting lot of obstructions and saying, how can you be Brahman? Or we won't come to this point itself that the essence of Vedanta is, I am Brahman. That is the obstacle, Our mind is very capable. So we should, all our sadhanas should help us stay away from that obstacle. Our Guruji also, he used to say one more thing. There was a teacher who was teaching Ramayana. And he was very passionate about teaching. And 1 year he taught thoroughly, each and every line by line he went and taught. Finally, one student came and asked him, "Oh teacher, I understood Ramayana. Can you tell me, I have only one question. Can you please tell me, who was Rakshasa? Was it Rama or was it Ravana?" When the teacher heard this question, he said, "Come here, I will tell you. Neither was Rama the Rakshasa, nor was Ravana the Rakshasa. The one who taught you for this 1 year, that person is the Rakshasa." The point is, are we able to grasp the essence? Vedanta will tell so many things. Do we have that kind of thinking where we can ascertain what is that essence that Vedanta is telling us? If that happens, then that is Shravanam. Means we have heard that Mahavakya thoroughly. Okay, Shruti Shuro Vakyam Samakarnyatam. Thoroughly listen to that. Now somebody might have this question, why does Vedanta emphasize so much on Shravanam? This connection, sometimes it's very hard for people to make. Any sadhaka, all of us have gone through it. That I am looking for happiness in my life. Why are you saying that I should do Shravanam? Let me do something. Right? Give me some kind of other sadhana by which I can gain happiness. So Vedanta is, begins with certain understandings about bondage. When we understand what is the nature of bondage, then only will we understand the counterpart, what is the nature of liberation. So what is the nature of bondage? nature of bondage is being ignorant of our true self. Means my nature is pure consciousness. Being ignorant of that, I have misunderstood myself to be something else. Now, if that is the nature of bondage, the solution to that bondage will be only through clear knowledge. And knowledge will always happen through valid means of knowledge, which is Vedanta. So Vedanta, how will it get into our head? How will we gain that knowledge? Through Shravanam. The best example for this, right, is the story of the 10th man. It's a very popular story, but it hits the point very precisely. Some of you might have heard it for 100th time, but I know there are some who might be new. Okay, so I'll just briefly mention this. Once there was a ashram on one side of the river, and the teacher had 10 disciples. All of them were greater than each other in terms of being a mudha. Mudha means they were very known for messing up things. So one day they felt we need a change now. 1 year has gone by, every day same ashram routine, morning till evening. They thought on the other side of that river there was a town. They told the teacher, can we just go to that town and come back? So the teacher said, okay. But he knew that they will mess up something on the way. So he said, when you reach the other side of the river, when you are swimming, there was no boat at that time, make sure that you count everybody. There should be 10 people. Everybody goes, they cross the river. When they reach there, they remember. The teacher has said we should count. Let us count. So then they start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then this person says, oh, you don't know how to count. Another person says, I will count. He also starts counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And when they hear that there is no 10th man, they start crying. They feel one of them has drowned in the river and the teacher is going to scold them now. Most importantly, our dear friend has drowned in that river. And everybody is sitting down and crying and lamenting what is fate and so on. Why should we have such desire? Now a wise man comes and says, he sees all of them and he asks them what is happening, and he understands what is happening there. They are not counting themselves, right? They are counting everybody else but not themselves. Then first of all, he makes a statement. He says, don't worry, the 10th man has not drowned. 10th man is still there. He's very well and doing, safe. You don't have to cry about the 10th man. But still they are not convinced. So then he says, okay, all of you stand in a line. I will start counting. Then he says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And 10th person, he says, Dashamastvamasi. That person who had counted before, who was crying, to that person he says, this 10th man is you yourself. You didn't count yourself. That is why you are counting 9 people. Now, what is the analogy of this, Even when the 10th man they were thinking was lost, that person was very well there. It was just a misapprehension that they were having, non-apprehension that I am the 10th man, and thinking that that 10th man is drowned. So in the same way, even when we are ignorant, even when we don't know our true nature, Vedanta says we are that same consciousness. No, we don't have to search for any new consciousness. We are already that. Okay, this is the first point. Now, second is, you ask this question, how will the sorrow of that 10th man go away? Will the sorrow of that 10th man go away by bringing that, drowned person back from that river? You cannot, because he has not drowned. Only way of removing the sorrow of that 10th man, what is the sorrow? Ignorance, is by listening to the words of that wise person. that wise person will come and say, you are that 10th man. In the same way, if we have misunderstood ourselves, if we have misunderstood that my true nature is consciousness and I'm unaffected by anything that happens, consciousness is unaffected. What is affecting is at the level of body and mind. And other sadhanas will take care of that. But I, as pure consciousness, am ever unaffected, and I am of the nature of happiness because I'm not limited by anything. Limitation brings sorrow. This is a very liberating thought. In fact, that thought conviction is itself called as liberation. So, that is the importance of Shravanam. Right? Vedanta's main emphasis is on this point. That is why this sadhana is important. Shruti Shiro Vakyam Samakarnyatam. Listen very thoroughly to this statement of Upanishad. And erroneous understanding of I means erroneous transactions. Right? Unless we are able to own up our true nature as consciousness, we will always own up erroneous nature of consciousness and transact in the world. But we all know that just by Shravanam, our doubts or conviction doesn't come in this knowledge. If somebody has done sadhanas 1 to 15 thoroughly, only Shravanam will give knowledge. Means aparoksha jnanam, liberation, conviction will come just with this sentence. Having heard it once from the teacher, there is no more questions to be asked. Raman Maharshi ji says, it's a beautiful shloka in Saddarshanam. He says, ahasputam tattvamasiti vedaha bhuyo vicharo mati durbalatvam. I mean, this is Raman Maharshi ji's conviction in Vedas. He says, if Vedas have said Tattvamasi, where is the scope of doubts now? Why are doubts coming in your mind if you have understood Pramana is Veda? And of course, other sadhanas are done. Then this is like a straightforward path, nothing more to ask. But it doesn't happen in that way. We should always be true to our experience. We should not take things for granted. Now, what is the contradiction here? Vedanta is telling me one thing, and my perception shows something else. Now, Vedanta is saying that I am that pure consciousness, and I am of the nature of happiness. Forget about pure consciousness and happiness. I feel that I'm a sukhi dukhi entity. Sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm sad. What is this? Vedanta is not matching with what my understanding is of aham. So perception is contradicting Vedanta Vakya. Okay, Vedanta Vakya is saying something, and my perception or experience is contradicting something. One thing we should note here is perceptions are not always correct knowledge. Means time and again, our perceptions have been proven wrong. We perceive the earth to be stationary or moving. We don't perceive it as moving. In fact, we see ourselves as stationary. We see the sun which is moving around. Perception tells me sky is blue, but sky doesn't have any color. Perception tells me earth is flat, but earth is not flat. So we should understand, for every kind of knowledge, there is a certain valid means of knowledge, which will be the authority. So when it comes to Vedanta, Vedanta Mahavakya is the authority with which we should go forward, with which we should accept or start thinking first of all. Okay? That Vedanta Vakya will not say that same thing which I am seeing through perception. If I can determine something through my eyes, why do I need Vedanta to tell me the same thing? right? If I can determine color of this bottle is blue, right? Now I don't need any other means of knowledge to tell me that this is blue, because eyes are sufficient to give that. But what is the nature of consciousness? Our eyes cannot tell. That is why perception will never be the same as knowledge. Okay, knowledge will tell me I am that consciousness in which ahankara is appearing, mind is appearing, and this world is seen. So my perception will never be of seeing the world as, this kind of consciousness which is being spoken about. It cannot be seen through eyes. That is what I'm saying. This thinking is called as mananam. Being able to determine what we have heard in Vedanta by using logic. That is the next sadhana. Vakyarthascha vicharyatam. Vakyarthascha mahavakya. What mahavakya we have heard, establish that using logic. Okay. That we will see not next time, next to next time. Okay, so we'll have some announcements now. So we'll conclude here. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om. You mentioned about reducing our ahankara and keeping us down. But ahankara also has positive benefits. Is that right? Like when it comes to choice between Shreyas and Preyas, it is ahankara that helps us pick Shreyas over Preyas. How do we use the positive aspects of ahankara and get rid of negative attributes? True. I think it was in Bhagavad Gita class that we had discussed between Vidya Maya and Avidya Maya. So both are parts of Maya only, but Vidya Maya helps us come out of samsara. Avidya Maya binds us in samsara. In the same way, ahankara, which is sattvic, that ahankara will help us come out of our negative tendencies. And it is good to keep that ahankara in the beginning. That is the only way for us to bring about change from our old habits. Right? Whatever we have been doing before coming into spirituality, or even in other goals that we have, we realize that our personality needs some changes. And the only way to bring about that change is to take on the role of sattvic ahankara. To be more precise, what is sattvic ahankara? Being a devotee of Bhagwan is that sattvic ahankara. Being a sadhaka is sattvic ahankara. And if one owns up that identity, our response to the world and situation will be very different. It should be very different, right? Because what we would respond as a sadhaka should be different from what we would have responded without that kind of a role. So in that way, sattvic ahankara will help us overcome our lower nature, lower negativities which are there. Each one of us will have to overcome for ourselves, and the support to do that is this new identity now. In a family, sometimes when the older brother is fighting with the younger sibling, right? Mother comes and says that you are the older one. You cannot, fight with your younger brother. Younger brother fighting is okay because that boy is so small, he's not even mature to think about all these things. Means that identity which is given to this person, to that child, that you are the older brother, that identity should help bring a change in the response. In the same way, when somebody says, I am devotee of Bhagwan, right? Then that identity should help us bring change in our vyavahara, transactions. Okay, that will be one way to bring about using sattvic ahankara to change ourselves. Another question is, something we have discussed before. It keeps coming up again and again for a sadhaka. So we will see it in a different light, but only one point we will see, because we have elaborated it a lot before. How to divinize Nitya Karma. Our daily actions, how can we divinize it? Now we saw several aspects, right? Having a higher altar, having Bhagwan, thinking of Bhagwan before doing anything, doing things to please Bhagwan. It doesn't matter what work we are doing, but the attitude behind that work. Simple thing as making tea, right? In the morning. What is our attitude while making that tea or simple food that we are cooking? Just acknowledging that these resources belong to him, and the one for whom I am doing it, that person also is represented by same Bhagwan. I am serving Bhagwan through this person. With that attitude, when we see, Nitya karmas will be divinized. Now, this is something we have seen before. If you want to see the same thing in a different light, how do we divinize Nitya karma? Another way to divinize it is to divinize ourselves. Means what? The sattvic ahankara, what we just spoke about, right? If we strengthen that attitude in ourselves, that I am a devotee of Bhagwan, anything and everything that we do with that identity is divine only. We don't have to pick and choose each and every situation separately, and have this conscious thought that, okay, now I need to remember Bhagwan and divinize this action, and then I have to do it. This attitude should become one with our personality. That is the culmination of thinking about this and getting this as our first nature, not second nature, first nature. Okay, there is one more question here regarding Shravanam, what we discussed today. For some of us, Shravanam happens even before knowing what is Mahavakya. Hearing about Mahavakya happens during Shravanam. Is that the reason why we feel progress on spiritual path is slow? So whatever happens before Mahavakya Shravanam, that is called as Apatata Shravanam. Means one is, it is not a concrete full idea of what is Vedanta. We have heard something here, something there, just we have sat in several satsangs, but they weren't coherent. They weren't making a coherent piece of understanding in our mind. So until that point, we are not able to ascertain what is the main essence of Vedanta. Now, Bhagavad Gita, if you study, right, Bhagwan talks about how much to eat, how much to act in the world. Bhagwan talks about Karma Yoga. He talks about Bhakti Yoga. So many things are mentioned, but what is the essence of that entire text? Unless that happens, it is said Shravanam has not started. Shravanam has not started until we are able to ascertain the essence. Apatata Shravanam might be there, and it will have its own benefits. We will have more calmness of mind, or we will be able to find answers to our immediate problems, which is a good thing. But Vedanta wants us to keep moving us forward, right? Not getting stuck at any point. So that is the main, meaning of Shravanam. Apatata Shravanam is before. Our Swamiji used to give an example when there are rains, right? Shower, when there is shower, if it is sporadic, it showers now, and then after 2 weeks, and then after 3 months, then you don't get crops. It is only coming, no doubt there is shower happening, rains are coming down, but crops are not formed with that kind of shower. What is a crop? Nature of true, our true nature. Aham Brahmasmi or Tattvamasi, conviction in that statement is the crop. And that crop comes when there is systematic Shravanam. And progress in spiritual path will be extent of abidance. Progress in spiritual path will be the ability to keep mind in this knowledge for an extended period of time, even in spite of doing other things. Not that leaving everything and then thinking about this, getting clarity that in spite of me being involved in vyavahara, I am still that pure consciousness unaffected by this vyavahara. Karmani akarmaya pashyat. In karma, the one who sees actionlessness. Bhagavan says that is true knowledge. Now this will happen through Shravanam and Mananam and lot of Nididhyasanam. Okay. So we'll pause here, and other questions I've noted. We'll discuss it in next class. Okay. So happy Diwali, and I hope all of you will join us for all the programs that are being announced. Diwali program, and also the Fundamentals of Vedanta camp. We'll be picking up, as Jignesh Bhai mentioned, a lot of topic-based ideas. It's not going to be text-based, but mainly topic-based. And I have drawn a lot of things from Guruji's camp that we had called Vedanta Ramanam. Okay, so Guruji used to give us topics every day and have us discuss first. And then we have to summarize in front of Guruji. What is it that we discussed? And that would be a laughter riot, sometimes, knowing that where all we are discussing, what all points are we discussing. And then Guruji used to summarize after whole day. He used to summarize that particular topic. So I have picked topics from those topics that Guruji gave us, and then we'll be elaborating more on that and reflecting more. Okay. Hari Om, everyone. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om. Hari Om.